In this week's episode of Z Racing series, we will visit Turf and Surf, a Makuri Island racecourse that's super easy in the first half but painfully brutal in the other. It's 25 kilometers long and has 200 meters of climbing, mainly divided into two significant climbs. First, that will get us to the Shisa Sprint banner, and the other right before the end in the Pain Caverns. Once again, I was racing in Monday's prime time, so there was over 100 riders, and among them some of the best B riders, so we can expect a fierce battle again. The start of the race was, however, fairly easy, at least in terms of how Zwift races usually go, and I could comfortably ride in the front group with a power output close to my FTP, which I really liked. However, I was not the only one who noticed that, and at one point, one of the riders sarcastically remarked that this was a nice group ride, and that summarized my feelings pretty well. Apparently, not everyone felt that way though, and it was a nice indication that even though we were racing in a single category, there was still a pretty wide range of skills and abilities. I felt great though, so much so that I even picked up my phone and started joking in the chat, which I honestly do not remember doing in the last few months. However, I knew that this relative comfort was only temporary, and all the easy riding right now would be paid for with blood and tears later on the climbs. Here you can see us leaving Nyokio, and there was a first attempt to break the group on the gravel section behind the tunnel. It didn't have a lot of chances to succeed, but indicated things would get serious pretty soon. Sure enough, the break was caught very soon as we were moving through the Slot Canyon to the Urukazi region of Makuri Islands. Here came the little kicker, and I felt I needed to start working a little bit. It was nothing major, but it was an indicator that the times of leisurely riding were over. Up until now, I still had my heart rate in the 150s, so it was probably about time. However, even this small effort managed to drop the first group of people, and not long after that, another one. For the most part though, the group stayed pretty compact as it was approaching the climb towards the Shisa Sprint. And here it is, the first test of not only my, but the whole group's resilience. I still felt pretty strong at this point and told myself that under no circumstances I was getting dropped on this climb. I also need to mention that this was the first race in spring, during which it was a little colder, so I really believed I could push hard here. I didn't even feel the need to stay at the tail, so I pushed myself pretty forward into the group. And as it turns out, I managed to survive. It was a pretty hard effort. The first climb of the day took me 2 minutes and 54 seconds with a power output of 4.9 watts per kilo. The climb has split the group into 2 parts, and I managed to stay in the front, so at this point, all went according to plan. That changed in the following descent though. The front group eased up pretty substantially, which allowed the chasing group to catch up and regroup, which you can see on the screen right now. As expected, it would all come down to the final climb in the pain caverns and subsequent section towards the finish line. I still felt pretty strong on this climb, but this time I was less in the control. The pace was heavy and I started hurting really bad. There was a great change in my performance compared to the previous races though. Even though I really hurt now, I managed to overcome it and push through it until the end of the climb. And once again I managed to stay with the group until the end of the climb, and my stats were even better than in the first one. It took me 3 minutes and 52 seconds to climb the pain caverns with an average power of 4.6 watts per kilo. However, even though this was a solid climbing performance for me, it wasn't unfortunately enough. At the summit of the climb, the group didn't ease up, it sped up even more. You can see on the chart that although I didn't slow down at the top of the climb, I have been finally dropped. I tried to stick to nearby riders to outkick them at the end as usual, but this time I was completely spent and my sprint ended as quickly as it started. Still, I managed to complete this course under 35 minutes and only 10 seconds behind the winner, and I can definitely consider that a success.